Pat Swilling on the speed run.
Downfield and Moore has a touchdown. Rison, touchdown Atlanta.
Most great NFL players had a stretch in their careers where they peaked, a prime where you could say they were operating on a level never seen before. Today, we'll be ignoring them and instead shine some light on those who've been lost in the shuffle. These players won't go down as all-time icons, but at their best, dominated like legends that have.
Draw play. Holmes on first down. Priest Holmes breaking free.
When reminiscing about the best runners of the aughts, Hall of Famers like LaDainian Tomlinson and Edgerrin James may be the first to come to mind, but from 2001 to 2003, nobody outproduced the tailback in Kansas City. If you drafted Priest Holmes to your fantasy team, you were almost a lock to win your championship.
Fake on the end around and set up the screenplay. Look at Holmes go down the sideline. An explosion of speed for Holmes.
Set up with an elite O-line, head coach Dick Vermeil made it his mission to feed the hungry back. Holmes immediately led the league in rushing with over 1,500 yards in 2001. He was a first-team All-Pro in 3 straight seasons and Offensive Player of the Year in 2002. His 27 scores in 2003 broke the single-season record.
Here he goes. He's up there. He's in. NFL record.
Holmes racked up over 6,500 yards from scrimmage and 61 touchdowns in that 3-year stretch, both most in the NFL. Asante Samuel Sr. was nightmare fuel for quarterbacks, leaving his prints in both the AFC and NFC East.
It's a blitz. Up in the air, it's intercepted. Second pick it again. Asante Samuel's got it again. Bellying back.
Samuel's 20 interceptions from 2006 to 2008 ranked second in the NFL, only behind the legendary Ed Reed.
Going in untouched. He sees the play, he diagnoses what Peyton Manning's going to do, and he just reacts faster than the wide receiver does.
After winning back-to-back titles to start his career, the 4th-round corner broke out in 2006. 24 passes defensed and 10 interceptions. No player had more. Samuel followed that up with another 6 picks during the Patriots' undefeated regular season in 2007, earning a first-team All-Pro nod for his efforts.
3.5 dozen. Looks like the pressure will come to Dorsey's left. Throws intercepted. Asante Samuel.
Samuel became one of the most desirable free agents in 2008 and did not miss a beat once signing with Philadelphia. He was named to the Pro Bowl once again and went on to record the most interceptions in the league from 2006 to 2010 with 36.
Wilson looking over the middle, look out, and Wilson's going to be taken down by Haason Reddick.
Haason Reddick has been making a living in that backfield today for Carolina.
Keeping him alive to throw. Here he goes, belted by Reddick. Loose ball.
If you think a 3-year prime spanning 2 different teams is impressive, boy do we have a player for you. Haason Reddick is one of 3 players to record at least 39 sacks between 2020 and 2022. Starting his career as an off-ball linebacker, Reddick moved into a 3-point stance in 2020 with the Cardinals. He recorded 12.5 sacks on the year, including a 5-sack outing against the G-Men.
Boy, in trouble, it's Reddick again! A franchise record, 5 sacks for Haason Reddick.
Reddick put together another double-digit sack season in Carolina, but his best year came in Philly the following season.
Pressure, Reddick buries him!
Reddick's 16 sacks got him his first Pro Bowl nod and second-team All-Pro honors. His presence on the outside ignited the Eagles' defense all the way to Super Bowl 57, back where it all began in Arizona.
Everett sends it deep, intended for Anderson, who comes back to get it and score.
If you were lucky enough to watch the exciting Rams teams from 1988 to 1990, you knew about Jim Everett's ability to put up points in a flash. No NFL quarterback threw for more yards or touchdowns than the gunslinger during his 3 years of greatness.
Everett going for more. Sharpe. Aaron Cox, and he is gone.
Midway through the 1987 season, the Rams traded Eric Dickerson to the Colts, which prompted a focus on Everett and the aerial attack. In 1988, he threw for 31 touchdowns, leading the entire league. Everett was even better in '89, throwing another league-high 29 touchdowns and setting a career high with over 4,300 yards. LA went 11-5 and reached the NFC Championship game. While the team's success was not to the same level in 1990, it was through no fault of Everett. The quarterback finished just 11 yards shy of a second consecutive 4,000-yard passing season, earning a Pro Bowl nod to boot.
Reliable Pete Retzlaff, a 9-year veteran from South Dakota State, leads the Birds in pass receiving.
We're going to rewind the clock with this one, going back to the early 1960s to tell the story of Pete Retzlaff. He emerged as the top receiving target for a Philadelphia team desperate to find an offensive spark. In a 3-year span from 1963 to 1965, no tight end had more catches, yards, or touchdowns. Unfortunately, the Eagles of this era struggled to win, a major reason why Retzlaff is not remembered as well today.
With a toss to Pete Retzlaff, who scores almost without effort.
His best season came in 1965, where despite Philly's 5-9 record, accumulated close to 1,200 yards through the air and caught 10 touchdowns, good enough for first-team All-Pro honors. Retzlaff even finished fourth in MVP voting as a tight end, proving just how difficult it was to prevent this bird from taking flight.
That meant defenses would have to open up and respect the deep threat. Buffalo learned the hard way.
Daryle, the Mad Bomber Lamonica, defined what being a gunslinger was all about. While this did lead to a career completion percentage below 50, he put up some of the best passing numbers in pro football to that point. From 1967 to 1969, Lamonica threw for more passing touchdowns than anyone in the AFL or NFL. His gaudy numbers weren't empty calories either. The Silver and Black went a staggering 37-4-1 in regular season play and made 3 straight AFL championship appearances.
Lamonica up back to throw, bends it out there for Miller.
Lamonica led the Raiders to Super Bowl II, but the Mad Bomber was no match for Vince Lombardi's Packers dynasty. Ken Stabler ultimately would be the quarterback to bring home a championship for the Raiders, but he never matched Lamonica's production. Nearly 10,000 yards and 89 touchdowns in that sensational 3-year prime.
This will be a pass on first down, and the pass is caught by Herman Moore.
Look, it's easy to get lost in the awe of Barry Sanders when watching the 1990s Lions, but he wasn't always the sole producer on offense. From 1995 to 1997, wide receiver Herman Moore had more catches and yards than any other player in the NFL.
Going for Herman Moore, downfield, and Moore has a touchdown! Great catch! Donald Frank and Moore were step for step, and Herman Moore reached up and made the catch, a 47-yard touchdown for the Lions.
Moore was both efficient in the quick game and elite at winning 50-50 balls downfield. In 1995, the wideout caught 123 passes, a then NFL record. Along with that, Moore gained almost 1,700 yards and scored 14 touchdowns, finishing 4th in Offensive Player of the Year voting.
Well, Herman Moore, 9 catches for 100 yards, needs 1 more catch to break Chris Carter's record. Moore, there it is, 123 catches this season.
1995 was definitely Moore's best season, but he was still a killer in 96 and 97. Moore eclipsed over 100 catches in both seasons, including tying for the receptions title in 1997. Moore was first-team All-Pro in 3 straight seasons, but Detroit did not finish with a single playoff win during that span.
Deron Cherry. Number 6 for Cherry. He goes 47 for the score.
When you dig into the career of safety Deron Cherry, the only thing you find yourself thinking is, how have I not heard of this guy earlier? Cherry was named to the Pro Bowl in 6 straight seasons and tallied over 50 career picks. Surely one of the most underrated players in NFL history. For From 1984 to 1986, Cherry recorded 23 interceptions, the most in the league. The only other player with even 20 was the great Ronnie Lott. In 1985, Cherry recorded one of the greatest stat lines by a defensive back in history.
Throws in the end zone, intercepted. Cherry for the fourth time. Deron Cherry. He has four interceptions.
4 interceptions against Seattle in a 28-7 win, single-handedly shutting down the Seahawks pass attack. He was tough, intelligent, respected by all, and was a first-team All-Pro twice during his 3-year stretch of greatness.
The offense was keyed by Chuck Foreman, who began his season with 3 touchdowns against the arch-rival Packers.
If the conductor of the Vikings offense in the 70s was Fran Tarkenton, Chuck Foreman was the engine. Relied on to touch the ball 300 times a season, the unheralded running back was efficient with his opportunities. Before Roger Craig, Marshall Faulk, and Christian McCaffrey were members of the 1,000,000 Club, Foreman was one of the first backs heavily involved in the passing game. His 73 catches in 1975 were the most in the entire league.
And Chuck Foreman, number 44, set an NFL record for running backs with 73 catches and 9 touchdowns in 1975.
Foreman's 51 touchdowns from 1974 to 1976 were the most in the NFL by a mile, 15 more than the next best guy. Foreman finished third in MVP voting in 1974 and started his career with 5 straight Pro Bowl appearances. The Vikes reached the Super Bowl in 74 and 76, but sadly fell short in each game. Foreman ran for only 62 yards across both contests, resulting in 2 painful Viking defeats.
3rd down and 9. Manning is down, ripped down to the ground by Beason, the middle linebacker.
Everyone in the state of North Carolina knows how impactful Luke Kuechly was to their local franchise, but true Panthers fans remember the prowess of his predecessor, linebacker Jon Beason. If Beason got his arms around you, the play ended there. From 2008 to 2010, Beason established himself as one of the league's premier off-ball linebackers. He paced the NFL in solo tackles and earned first-team All-Pro honors in 2008.
Water picked off by Jon Beason.
Similar to Kuechly, Beason was just as efficient dropping back into coverage, intercepting 8 passes in his first 4 seasons. He was a Pro Bowler in 3 straight seasons and ruined offenses across the league.
Romo pressured and goes down. It was Beason coming at him.
If Beason and Kuechly were paired together at both of their peaks, Carolina fans may have been able to witness a championship banner hung over Bank of America Stadium. There were plenty of great teams during the 1990s, the Cowboys, 49ers, Broncos, but certainly not the Bengals. Cincinnati had the worst record of the entire decade, winning just 52 games. Despite its revolving door of quarterbacks and embarrassing defenses, the franchise did have one bright spot, wide receiver Carl Pickens.
And here we go again. Pickens down the sidelines, makes the catch, and he scores.
From 1994 to 1996, no receiver spent more time in the end zone. Pickens reeled in 40 touchdown grabs, including a 17-score season in 1995. Cincinnati was a problem in the passing game, largely due to Pickens' ability to win in contested situations and blazing speed after the catch.
Long ball downfield. What a catch by Carl Pickens.
A Pro Bowler in both 1995 and 96, he was perhaps the biggest reason the Bengals were even competitive at any point during the decade. Pickens is likely a household name if he could have been catching passes from Boomer Esiason a bit earlier in his career.
Stanley Wilson, no, on a fake and wide open is Eddie Brown. Apparently I wasn't the only one who thought that Stanley Wilson had the balls.
This is a great fake by Esiason.
Speaking of the now CBS analyst, Boomer Esiason, by many metrics, is one of the best left-handed quarterbacks of all time. He threw for more yards and touchdowns than any other southpaw in history. In 1988, Boomer was performing on a level unmatched by any other signal caller around. He led the league in both yards per attempt and passer rating thanks to dimes like this.
2 running backs now, Kennebrew and Brooks, and Boomer's going to go back and throw. Now looking, now he's flushed out, rolling out to his left. Nobody to throw it to, and now he throws it far downfield. There's Holmes, and he has it at the 20, down to the 10, 5, touchdown!
Monumental season resulted in the MVP award and a trip to Super Bowl 23, but Joe Montana and John Taylor halted efforts to bring a Lombardi trophy back to the Queen City. Boomer reached another Pro Bowl in 1989, putting up 28 touchdowns, yet it wasn't enough for Cincy to return to the playoffs. The final year of his prime saw one final playoff push for the team, winning in dominant fashion in the wild card round versus the Oilers.
And number 56, Andre Tippett, whose unique style of play earned him the team's Most Valuable Player award in 1984.
Rarely does a Hall of Famer's prime get underappreciated, but when most people were busy obsessing over Lawrence Taylor, Andre Tippett put together monstrous sack totals during his best years as a pro. Tippett was a Pro Bowl linebacker for 5 straight seasons, and he took his game to another level between 1984 and 1986. Through his pure dominance off the edge, Tippett carried New England to the playoffs and even an appearance in Super Bowl 20.
Andre Tippett's favorite means of causing havoc was to use his black belt karate techniques to reach the quarterback.
In just 43 games, Tippett recorded 44.5 sacks, making life miserable for offensive tackles. His monster campaign in 1984 resulted in 18.5 sacks, a franchise record to this day. Tippett and the defense led the Pats to 3 straight winning seasons.
Second down 10. Bledsoe looks down the middle to Coates, and Coates has a chance to go all the way.
Many Bostonians consider Ben Coates Gronk before Gronk due to his large frame, the 87 jersey, and an ability to make grown men look like toddlers.
He's big, he's fast. When it comes to the tight end position, he is the standard.
Coates was named first-team All-Pro in back-to-back seasons. His 96 catches in 1994 were a then NFL record for tight ends. What's not shown in the box score is his run-blocking ability. Then rookie Curtis Martin can thank Coates for his blazing hot start in 1995, rushing for nearly 1,500 yards. New England made a run all the way to Super Bowl 31 in 1996, in large part due to Coates' 9 touchdown connections with emerging quarterback Drew Bledsoe. During his 3-year prime, Coates caught more passes than Shannon Sharpe, went for more yards than Andre Reed, and more touchdowns than Michael Irvin. Talk about underrated. 5-time Pro Bowler Andre Rison consistently sparked offenses during his NFL tenure, and did so while being a member of 7 different franchises.
Rison can't get in. Makes a fine move. He does get in. I beg your pardon.
But once again, the dreaded red zone for the Browns. Zaire to the end zone. Andre Rison.
Trips right, Gerback looking left, Gerback going into the end zone. He's caught for the touchdown.
Rison's 3-year prime came with the Falcons between 1991 and 93, tallying 260 receptions for close to 3,400 yards. But Rison's best attribute was his ability to score in the red zone. From 91 to 93, Rison's 38 scores were the second most in the NFL, only behind Jerry Rice.
Rison, touchdown Atlanta.
Rison bounced around for the remainder of his career, including a stint with the Packers in 1996, where he caught the first touchdown of Super Bowl 31. While he never found a permanent home in the NFL, Rison still managed to put together quite the career. In his prime, he was as good as anybody at the position.
Bradley is the Eagles' leader, a game breaker who turns defense into instant offense for Philadelphia.
If you're old enough to have been able to watch the Eagles of the early 70s, it was impossible not to notice Bill Bradley's impact. The standout safety was essentially the center fielder for Philadelphia, leading the league in interceptions twice. Bradley's 24 picks from 1971 to 1973 were the most in the NFL by a wide margin. He was utilized on special teams as well, serving as the Eagles' punter, averaging 40 yards per boot.
He was the Eagles' leading punter and also their leading punt returner.
A 6-year career is why many forget Bradley's extraordinary play, but you can't minimize the numbers Bradley accumulated during his best 3 years.
Gerald Riggs, number 42, a runner whose great strides carried him into the realms of the NFL's premier running backs. It was a reputation that Riggs made the old-fashioned way. He earned it.
From 1984 to 1986, Gerald Riggs carried the ball more times than any other back in the NFL. He ran for more yards than Marcus Allen and scored more touchdowns than Walter Payton. Riggs defined what it meant to be a bell cow, excelling between the tackles and picking up tough yards nobody else could.
Touchdown. Short yardage offense. Riggs, touchdown. Second down and goal. This one's over.
His best season came in 1985, where Riggs ran for over 1,700 yards and 10 touchdowns, good enough for second-team All-Pro honors. Despite averaging over 1,500 yards a year, Atlanta was never able to make the playoffs during Riggs' prime, but 2 Pro Bowl nods along with the franchise record for rushing yards isn't too shabby either. Plenty of NFL fans know Rich Gannon won MVP in 2002, but what many don't realize is that was just 1 year of a fantastic stretch from the career journeyman.
Right down the middle. It's caught by Garner. It's a foot race, and he's in for the touchdown.
After serving as a backup for most of his football life, Gannon was matched up with John Gruden in Oakland. At the age of 34, he mastered the West Coast offense.
Gannon to the end zone to Rice.
The ageless wonder's accuracy and IQ is the very reason Oakland's offense reached new heights. Gannon threw for at least 3,400 yards 3 straight years and was named first-team All-Pro twice between 2000 and 2002. He led the Raiders to the playoffs all 3 seasons, including a trip to Super Bowl 37 in the 2002 season. That year, the MVP paced the league with nearly 4,700 yards passing.
To the end zone and caught for a touchdown.
You want to tell me how valuable a quarterback that can move is? Watch this.
Gannon's 3-year prime resulted in the second most passing yards in the league, just behind Hall of Famer Peyton Manning.
Steve Young, acquired from Tampa Bay, is in a surprising move right here. And Young throws the ball away. They call the sack back at the 17-yard line, and it's Pat Swilling, 56. Is Bill Walsh too cute with that kind of move right there? Montana doing most of his work through the air, and this time Pat Swilling gets through for his second sack of the game.
When discussing the great linebacker corps of all time, the Dome Patrol Saints of the early 90s needs to be brought up. The position group featured 2 Hall of Famers in Sam Mills and Ricky Jackson, but you can't sleep on Pat Swilling.
Pat Swilling on the speed rush.
A premier edge rusher utilizing speed and athleticism became one of the most feared defenders of his era. Swilling's 44.5 sacks led the entire league from 1989 to 1991, beating out players like Derek Thomas and Reggie White. The Dome Patrol led the Saints to the franchise's second ever playoff appearance in 1990. The following year, Swilling tallied a league-high 17 sacks and was awarded with Defensive Player of the Year.
But the man that made the play was Pat Swilling. Up to this point, Richmond Webb had been doing a pretty good job on him, but Swilling got off the mark well and strips the arm of Marino.
This ferocious defense helped New Orleans become a competitive franchise for the first time in their team's existence, and Swilling was at the center of it all.
He sends Jefferson and Joyner left. He's going for Jefferson. He's got it to the 1-yard line. Touchdown. He wasn't touched. Jefferson rolls in for the victory.
It's not often we witness a player's 3-year prime unfold in their first 3 NFL seasons, but this happens to be the case with Chargers spark plug John Jefferson. From 1978 to 1980, he was the top target of the famous Air Coryell offense, redefining the modern passing game.
The wide receiver from Arizona State was 78's #1 draft pick and was blessed with a kind of body control and agility that no coach could teach.
Jefferson paired freakish athleticism with elite hands, becoming one of the league's premier receivers out of the gate. He caught a league-high 13 touchdowns as a rookie in 1978. Teams were unable to figure out how to slow down San Diego's vertical threat, as Jefferson hauled in another 10 touchdowns in 1979. By the following season, he was automatic, setting league highs in both receiving yardage and scoring.
On the last play of overtime, with the final seconds leaving the clock, Bout spotted a friend in the far corner of the the end zone.
No wideout caught more touchdowns than Jefferson from 1978 to 1980. His on-field heroics awarded him with 3 straight Pro Bowls and 2 first-team All-Pro selections, stamping his superiority over almost any receiver in football.
They want to run the football to the left.
And they're moving quickly. Chad Johnson in stride. Touchdown, Cincinnati.
Before Joe Burrow and Andy Dalton were taking the Bengals to the postseason, Carson Palmer was the first Cincinnati franchise quarterback of the 21st century. Palmer turned a pedestrian offense around, building dynamic connections with both Chad Johnson and T.J. Houshmandzadeh.
Throwing deep, wide open, Houshmandzadeh. Touchdown Bengals.
He excelled as an accurate decision-maker, completing 65% of his passes over his 3-year prime. Palmer led the league with 32 touchdown passes in 2005, winning the AFC North in the process.
And he's under it and taken off down the sideline down to the 23 of Pittsburgh. And Palmer was walloped after the throw.
Disaster struck in the wild card game as Palmer tore his ACL in the first quarter. He came back to play all 16 games in 2006, passing for over 4,000 yards for the first time in his career, and was selected to his second consecutive Pro Bowl. The 2007 campaign ended with another career high in passing yards, this time with over 4,100. From 2005 to 2007, Palmer finished top 5 in completions, yards, and touchdowns, competing alongside legends of the game.
Fake the reverse. Metcalf keeps it. Metcalf down the sideline. Cuts back to use a blocker at the 5. Touchdown!
One of the most versatile players in NFL history, Eric Metcalf spent time as a running back, wide receiver, and a lethal return man. From 1993 to 1995, Metcalf brought it all together, evolving into one of the most dangerous weapons of the entire decade.
20 to the 25, 30, 35, he needs a block at the 40, 45, 50, Metcalf at the 40, 25, 20, he's all the way for a touchdown! Here's Royals on the punt, gets the kick away, driving Metcalf all the way back to the 25, ahead to the 30, outside to the 35, to the 40, to the 45, to the 50, in the Steelers' territory at the 40, to the 30, to the 20, to the 10, 15, touchdown Browns! Unbelievable! You'll never see a better return than that!
From 1993 to 1994, Metcalf amassed over 3,200 combined all-purpose yards, earning a pair of Pro Bowl trips for his efforts.
George airs it out. Metcalf, touchdown Atlanta.
Now a member of the Falcons in 1995, Metcalf's role shifted to the outside. He finished that campaign a hair under 2,000 all-purpose yards, including 1,000 through the air. No other player in history has had a 3-year stretch with at least 4 rushing touchdowns, 10 receiving touchdowns, and 5 return touchdowns. He is as unique a player to ever step foot on the gridiron.
Cunningham's pass is caught again by Jackson. Jackson goes in for the touchdown.
Yet another player whose prime started their rookie season, tight end Keith Jackson built instant chemistry with the Philadelphia phenom that was Randall Cunningham. Jackson was named first-team All-Pro every year from 1988 to 1990, and Philly notched double-digit wins in each. You could argue his first season was the best of his career, catching 81 passes, a rookie tight end record that stood for 35 years. Jackson caught at least 50 balls in each of the next 2 seasons as well, and while his receiving totals won't wow you, he was an essential piece to the Eagles' offensive game plan.
Play fake, good fake by Cunningham. In the end zone, touchdown!
Randall Cunningham viewed him as the ultimate safety blanket, targeting Jackson on critical third downs, and rarely did a ball that went to him touch the ground. To be recognized as the best tight end in the NFL 3 years in a row is an outstanding accomplishment and well-deserving of a spot on list of forgotten primes. During the same 3-year stretch Priest Holmes was rewriting the record books, a player from the NFC elevated himself into a top weapon in a Brett Favre offense.
Here's Ahman Green.
and he is gone.
After 2 seasons of not starting a single game for the Seattle Seahawks, Ahman Green joined the Packers and recorded over 300 touches in each of his first 4 seasons. From 2001 to 2003, Green ranked in the top 5 in total rushing yardage and touchdowns, not to mention at least 50 catches during each campaign.
Green and Nick Lucci in the backfield. Green, look at Green, all by himself.
Green peaked in 2003, running for nearly 1,900 yards and scoring 20 total touchdowns. The Packers went on to win a playoff game versus Green's former team, and he rushed for 2 more scores in the matchup. Green Bay's all-time leading rusher was a bully between the tackles and punished the opposition during his underrated prime.
Leftwich lets it go down the sideline, picked up, and that should be a touchdown. And it is.
From 1998 to 2000, there was nobody better at making a quarterback look foolish than cornerback Sam Madison. The physical DB intercepted 20 passes in that span and was no stranger to making tackles in the run game. In 1998, Madison picked off 8 passes, establishing himself as one of the league's top corners at 24 years old. But 99 is when he elevated his game to another level. Madison took home first-team All-Pro honors with 7 INTs, tied for the league high.
Sam Madison, 7th interception of the season.
The Dolphins went through a major shift in 2000 as franchise icon Dan Marino retired. Thanks to the defensive efforts of Madison and others, Miami didn't miss a beat. They returned to the playoffs once again, defeating Peyton Manning's Colts in the franchise's most recent playoff win.
They've done a great job. Eddie George on the toss sweep. Look at the hole! Touchdown!
One man was never enough to bring Eddie George to the ground. The former Ohio State Heisman winner made a living off physicality with over 1,000 carries from 1998 to 2000. George made the Pro Bowl in '98 with over 1,600 yards from scrimmage, but his next 2 years were the best of his career. In 1999, Tennessee would bully their way through the AFC, riding George's 1,304 rushing yards and 13 total touchdowns to a spot in Super Bowl 34.
George again. George breaking tackles into the end zone.
In 2000, he carried the ball a league-high 403 times and had tallied almost 2,000 yards from scrimmage. How about 16 touchdowns to boot? George was first-team All-Pro that year and once again put Tennessee in a prime position to make a deep playoff run, but George's prime would be capped off on the wrong side of history, losing to their bitter rivals in the divisional round.
And Eddie George is heartbroken because that's his fault.
52 seconds to play. Nothing is easy, is it? Sipe back to throw. He throws in the end zone. It is a touchdown! Touchdown, Cleveland!
Nicknamed the Cardiac Kids due to their late-game heroics, Brian Sipe and the Cleveland Browns engineered 13 game-winning drives from 1978 to 1980. Sipe's 28 passing touchdowns in 1979 would be tied for most in the NFL as he finished 3rd in MVP voting.
Led by the hottest quarterback in pro football, the Browns were anything but boring.
Sipe's 30 passing touchdowns the next season still stands as the most in Cleveland Browns history. He combined that with a league-high 91 passer rating, 11-5 record, and the league MVP. Unfortunately, the Cardiac Kids ran out of miracles come playoff time, losing to the Raiders in the infamous Red-Right 88 game. The Browns may not be the first team you think of in terms of quarterback excellence, yet from 1978 to 1980, nobody can deny that Cleveland had a franchise guy with sight.
Nickel defense in for the Redskins. Safety.
The unofficial sack leader for Washington and a 2-time Super Bowl champion, there may be no pass rusher more underrated than Dexter Manley.
Manley will be coming from the right side of your screen. Just swarms over the top of Woodley.
His combination of brute strength and speed off the ball made him virtually unblockable. Manley notched 13.5 sacks in 1984, 15 more in 1985. When you're a player that talks as much trash as Manley did, you better be able to back it up, and he sure did.
And it's going to be Dexter Manley to run it in.
1986 was Manley's best season, tallying 18.5 sacks and a first-team All-Pro selection. From 1984 to 86, Manley's 47 QB takedowns were the most in all of football, even edging out Lawrence Taylor.
I'm the only pro football player that's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm the second best player in my own family.
It's not often you hear a Hall of Fame player admit that he was not the best player on his own family, but this really may have been the case with Shannon and Sterling Sharpe. When Green Bay traded for Brett Favre in 1992, Sharpe transformed into arguably the best receiver in all of football.
He is there, it is Sharpe! To the 20, to the 10, touchdown Packers!
This is the hook and go pattern. 2 All-Pros, Rod Woodson versus Sharpe. He bites on the hook, and that's it. It's all over.
He earned the receiving Triple Crown in 1992, leading the league in receptions, yards, and touchdowns, all in an era where Jerry Rice was playing at his peak. Wild stuff. Sharpe continued his excellence over the next 2 seasons, catching a career-high 112 balls in 1993 and catching a league-high 18 touchdowns in 1994. In his prime, Sharpe had more receptions and touchdowns than any other player in the league.
Goes for the whole thing! Touchdown! Green Bay leads!
This magnificent career unfortunately did not have a happy ending. Late in the 94 season, Sharpe suffered a career-ending neck injury, forcing him to walk away from the game at just 29 years of age. His short career was so dominant that he was finally able to join his brother in Canton in 2025.
This is something oh wow, man, I need a seat.
Our final 3-year prime is one you probably should have heard of, as one could argue it's the most dominant stretch of any player in NFL history. Here's the catch. It happened 80 years ago.
Don's blazing speed made him hard to cover. This time, watch him take a long throw from Herbert, good for 6 points.
From 1941 to 1943, Don Hutson put together statistical anomalies the sports world had never seen. He won the Triple Crown in all 3 seasons, but 1942 might be the greatest performance in the history of football. Hutson caught 74 passes for over 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns. Each became instant NFL records. Did we mention the season was 11 games long? If you were to take the gap between Hutson's numbers and the second closest at each statistic, the 47 receptions, 640 yards, and 9 touchdowns would have also won the Triple Crown against the rest of the league. Hutson was literally lapping the competition.